This is Group 7, and this is our proactive approach to classroom management. I am Jordan Burns.
I'm Kara Lafon.
I'm Rachel Nordquist.
I'm Nathan Peaslee, and we are the few, the proud, the secondary teachers.
A good room arrangement in a classroom can be very beneficial in many different ways. The traditional classroom arrangement is set up in rows and columns, much like a spreadsheet, and it makes the kids feel like as if they're on their own. They have to be louder while talking to one another because of the spacing between them in the class, and that causes interruptions to classroom instruction. The ideal classroom setup would be putting students into groups of 3 or 4, depending on the class size and the desk that you use in your classroom. This setup still allows the students to face the board while also having small groups to have conversation and have a support system if they do not understand a problem. Using groups also allows the teacher to more easily manage the classroom and teach the students how to manage themselves. William Wattenberg techniques to encourage self-control work great in this ideal setup. You can still walk around the classroom and be close to the students, and as you walk around you notice there's a student misbehaving. You can use the teacher look to correct an issue without significant disruption. You may also do a flyby and tap on their desk, showing the students that you are watching them more carefully now, and you stop whatever they were doing. Setting the expectation may be the most important thing to do in the first 2 weeks of school. Setting the expectation early will prevent issues later down the road. It is easy to lighten up on the rules or allow your class freedom after the fact, but it's much harder to reel them in once they've gotten out of control. Here are a few ways to set the expectations early and prevent issues later down the road. Allow the student to set the classroom rules and expectations for the class. This should be anywhere from 3 to 4 rules that they come up with that they expect from themselves and from one another. These can be somewhat vague and cover a large area, but make sure the rules they set fit with how you want the classroom to run. Allowing them to create the rules makes them feel a part of the class. And if they break them, they broke their own rule, and you can use that as a learning opportunity for them. Haim Ginott said to give students a blank slate and a new start when they come into your classroom. Do not go to other teachers and ask how they were for them. Give them the opportunity to do good. As teachers, many times we talk to other teachers and get a bad rep about certain students. So when they come into our classroom, we are hard on them from the start. We do not give them the chance to be good, and so the pattern continues from class to class. Allow your students a voice in your classroom. Rudolf Dreikurs was big on the democratic classroom. This gives your students a say in the classroom. They will respect you more and will be more willing to do what you ask if they feel invested in the class. The learning environment in your classroom will be motivating and good if you listen to your students and be flexible with them and listen to what they have to say to you. Use Williams Glasser's 7 caring habits to organize your expectations. Those are supporting, encouraging, listening, accepting, trusting, respecting, and negotiating differences.
Classroom management begins before we even step into the classroom. Our planning is really important, and it's actually a crucial step to be able to proactively manage a classroom. One thing for being prepared is to have lessons that are very engaging and that use a lot of variety. So using things like cooperative learning, experiential learning, technology in the classroom, discovery learning. All these things, using lots of variety in our lessons, will help keep students engaged.
It is important to always have a backup plan when teaching. Over-planning is essential. Having activities that are extra for time management and having thought about all of the possibilities that happen in the classroom is important.
Even when you use all the tips and tricks in the classroom, there will be students who will still misbehave, and you'll have to address the issue. Here is a simple 4-step process to dealing with students who continue to misbehave or cause a major disruption in your class. A verbal or on-the-board warning. Number 2, stay after class and discuss the issue and/or give an extra assignment. Number 3, call the parents. And number 4, see the principal. Hopefully, the information we provided will allow you to avoid having to deal with misbehavior. But there will be necessary times you will have to go to the list to help correct students with misbehavior problems.
During a lesson, there are many strategies which you can follow and implement based upon Kunin's theories of classroom management. For one, effective transitions. If you move efficiently from one thing to the next without losing class time, students will not be distracted or be given opportunities in which to otherwise cause you trouble. Group alerting is a strategy you can use in the classroom through consistent verbal and nonverbal cues so students know when to expect a transition. When students know that the work is going to change, that gives them the opportunity, and you the opportunity, to have students perform desired activities like packing up books, pens, pencils, things of that nature, while you are moving from one to the other. The next strategy, overlapping, involves having students doing multiple activities. For example, if I have students back in the lab performing a procedure, while other students are performing a group activity and maybe having a third, either on computers, taking notes, doing independent practice, things like that. Overlapping involves simply having all that occurring at once, and then you, as the teacher, being in charge of all of it and maintaining control over every student. Second to last, smoothness is a teacher's ability to continue the lesson without being distracted. So if I'm having a student who's being both disrespectful, things of that nature, if I follow previous strategies outlined earlier in terms of proactive management and otherwise behavior management for isolating the student or otherwise ignoring the behavior, those can be used to seamlessly keep the classroom going and to avoid a confrontation with that student. Last, but certainly not least, is called with-itness. And this involves being aware of the classroom and what students are doing. This can be achieved through physical proximity, walking the room, anything of that nature, again, previously outlined, can contribute to a well-behaved classroom. So, as we continue our discussion about what to do during the class, first thing you should allow is students' group opportunities. Do not be afraid to let them speak to one another. If you try to control the flow of classroom and the discussion, students will not be free-flowing with their ideas or questions, which will further hinder your efforts to actually receive feedback and otherwise improve students' learning. Next, as we look at other theories, the Cantors advise developing a sense of trust. As one movie quote goes, "Trust is a must," or as Albert Einstein says, "Whoever is careless with the truth in small matters cannot be trusted with important matters." If your students do not trust you, or if, on the other hand, you don't trust them, then how can you ever trust them to do any assignments or do anything in a group together? If you cannot, then why should they? And if they shouldn't trust you because you do not, sorry, circular logic here slightly, however, if you do not trust them, the reverse is true as well. They will not trust you and you will not be able to do anything in the classroom. Next, allow for mistakes and hiccups in the plan. Always account for the student who's going to be the most troublesome. Usually you can expect, without much fail, that little Johnny today is going to flip his desk again. That being said, you should know at what point little Johnny is going to do whatever behavior you do not want him to do. Which brings me to my next point of being watchful and wary for imminent misbehavior. Misbehavior does happen. However, with a proactive classroom management plan, and referring to our previous slides, you can also watch and otherwise prevent such misbehaviors occurring. If you can do that, then you can also have successful and smooth transitions occur or otherwise maintain your witness and other strategies spoken previously about with Kunin. Last, let the students compete. Yes, competition has its place in the classroom. Now, it doesn't have to be there all the time. However, having that little bit in there fulfills students' desires for Erickson's identity versus confusion from one another within the school. By doing so, they can achieve a certain degree of identity within your classroom alone. If they feel validated as a person as a result, then all the more better for their motivation and otherwise good feelings in the classroom.
Forming parent-teacher connections is important to building relationships that are professional and useful. This can be done through the creation of an early and accessible website, a newsletter or email that points out the objectives that are for that unit, and phone calls throughout the semester are also helpful for student connections and parent-teacher connections. This can be done by having a list of the students and calling one throughout the semester.
It's also important to know what language our students speak at home so that when we communicate with parents, we can have translators for parent-teacher conferences, and then we can also translate newsletters and communication with parents in their native language. In addition, it's important to address diversity in the classroom throughout the year and in all of our lessons. One thing to be aware of is how different cultures respond to different classroom management techniques. For instance, some cultures have a different view of eye contact, and some teachers who aren't aware of this might assume that a student is being disrespectful if they don't look at the teacher in the eye when they're being reprimanded. But this might be considered disrespectful in another culture. So it's important for teachers to be aware of those cultural norms and to respond accordingly with what the students are more comfortable with. Also, another area that could be different is a view of cheating. Some students have a different view of sharing information, and so it's important for teachers to set clear expectations from the beginning so that regardless of what students perceive as cheating and other things like that, they are aware of what the expectations are for the class. In addition, in classrooms and in our lessons, we can use projects that have students share about their cultures and things that encourage them to share about their cultural heritage, the places that they're from, and also to compare, specifically for a language classroom, since we would be teaching Spanish, to compare the home cultures of our students with the cultures that we're studying and with American culture.
Within your class, there is a vast mix of students and backgrounds. No student is the same, and the same should not be true for the instruction in your class. Special needs and special education students need particular things to help them in the learning process in your classroom. Paula Cook uses these to help students who may be struggling in your class. Be sure to differentiate your instruction to accommodate these particular needs. Also, to provide a structured environment without over-simulation. This will help the special education students in your class feel a part of the class while giving them the help they need in the learning process.
Teachers also have an important role to support student self-management. Barbara Colaroso and Rudolf Dreikers talked a lot about this, and they emphasize the importance of using discipline and logical consequences rather than punishments to encourage students to to have positive behaviors. The first thing that teachers should do is set clear expectations for what those positive behaviors should be. They also should make it clear to students what the logical consequences will be for those actions if they misbehave. When a student does misbehave, the teacher can encourage the student to have self-control and to manage their own behavior by asking them what they did wrong, and sometimes even referring back to the list of expectations that they've already established in the classroom. Once students are able to explain what they've done wrong and how they can fix their behavior, they will be on a better path to be able to manage their behavior in the future.
According to William Wattenberg, techniques to encourage self-control are eye contact or teacher look. This can be just simply looking across the room to stop a distraction like talking. Physical proximity. A good teacher is constantly walking around the room and being engaged in the different activities of the students. Tapping the desk while walking by, or point to the rules.